Welcome, workers and friends. Welcome back to Working Class Revolt. I'm one of your hosts, Dus James, a student of Marxist Leninism and a truck driver from rural North Carolina. With me, as always, my brother, union organizer, comrade from Australia, brother David Fox. How's it going?
Very good, thank you.
Right on. And we also have our student comrade from Scotland, United Kingdom, brother William Morrison. How's it out there?
Yeah, it's doing okay. Yeah, been feeling quite demoralised in the past couple of days, but I'm glad to be getting into this political work. It's like therapy for me doing stuff like this. So yeah, I'm glad to be back on your channel.
Right on, right on. I know everybody getting off of COVID, high inflation. I know we always talk about the economic conditions the communities are facing. So we don't have to depend on the mainstream media. We can get it directly from workers themselves. And we're glad to have you here, brother William Morrison. And, you know, we are absolutely honored to have one of my personal heroes as a guest, brother Carlito Rovira. Let me know if I get this introduction wrong, but at a very young age, he joined the political organization, the Young Lords. And he's also been a lifetime activist, including work fighting for the rights and the freedom of political prisoners. How's it going?
It's going. Happy to be here.
Right on. We're happy to have you. So we ain't gonna waste nobody's time. Let's get right into it. This is a political show. Maybe you can give us a little bit of insight on, the conditions and the circumstances, as well as how you came into political life.
Well, most people know what a red diaper baby is. I was a black diaper baby. My parents were members of the clandestine Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico. And there was a rear guard base in New York City of the Nationalist Party. And my upbringing was, disguising that, my parents disguising that membership. And what they used to do is they used to raise money to buy guns for the Nationalist Party in Puerto Rico. I can talk about it now because, they're deceased and there's such a thing as statute of limitations. I joined the Young Lords at the age of 14, but it was with my parents' blessings. It was, in the Puerto Rican community, like the Black community, it was highly politicized. It was, the 1960s consumed everyone in the United States. It consumed everyone. You was either for the progressive thrust or you were part of the backward thrust. There was nothing in between. Everyone became consumed by the events of the 1960s. And the Puerto Rican community in the United States, not only did it migrate to this country, it migrated into the civil rights movement. And the African American people were at a very high pitch in their struggle for emancipation, and everyone who came to this country was pulled to one of the two political poles that existed, and that was either for Black emancipation or for white privilege. Puerto Ricans naturally gravitated to the Black struggle, and that became the political setting as to why a Puerto Rican street gang known as the Young Lords gravitated to the teachings of the Black Panther Party. It was the Black Panther Party that was instrumental in the transformation of the Young Lords from a street gang into a revolutionary political entity. That became my premise. To understand, who I am, you would have to understand who the Young Lords were. The Young Lords and the Black Panther Party broke a lot of the taboos of what is Marxism, because Marxism was no longer something that white intellectuals mastered, or I should say capitalized. There was the birth of this phenomenon known as third world socialism. The Young Lords and the Black Panther Party, and everyone in the Rainbow Coalition for that matter, including the Brown Berets and the Young Patriots, the American Indian Movement, the ATM, we studied Marxism. My introduction to the Communist Manifesto, my introduction to Anti-Düring, my introduction to State and Revolution, Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, was in the Young Lords. It was mandatory classes. You failed to show up to the classes, you were disciplined, and the discipline went to the extension of expulsion. We took study very seriously. So that became the reasoning why COINTELPRO, Operation COINTELPRO, the FBI's Operation COINTELPRO, focused on the destruction of the Black Panther Party, because their biggest fear in the United States historically is when people of color take an anti-capitalist stance, take a revolutionary pro-socialism stance. It horrifies them, for some very good objective reasons. Black slavery became the impetus of American capitalism. It became the economic impetus of American capitalism. Puerto Rico is a traditional colony. It is a capitalist colony. Unlike previous, the colonialism of previous eras, Puerto Rico became a capitalist colony by the biggest capitalist tyrant in the world, and that little island has become the 5th largest consumer of U.S. goods, and that is not surprising. It was there's a reason why the Monroe Doctrine continues to be enforced. There's a reason why in the early 1900s they came up with this thing called the Jones Act. It was the economic relationship between oppressor nation and a colony, but carried out with steroids. So that is the basis in which Puerto Ricans were forced to come to the United States for economic reasons, and it continues to be the logic for behind how white supremacy is practiced on Puerto Ricans and other Latinos. Okay, because today Puerto Ricans and Mexican Americans are not the only Latinos in this country. You have Latin people here from the full spectrum of Latin America. So it's a phenomenon that the right wing is taking close notice of, because on the one hand, they want Latino people along with African Americans to exploit, but then again, something terrifies them, because the studies have proven that by the middle of this century, the majority of the people in the United States will not be white. Okay, and it's something that's freaking them out. You know, it's part of the reason why the far right, you know, went berserk on January 6th. Okay, when they went to the Capitol to get crazy, because there is a severe economic crisis looming, true, but what's also looming is a definite revolutionary struggle in this country.
That's a great introduction, brother. Before we get too far ahead into the current moment, maybe we could just highlight a few aspects of your work. Let's start with the period with the young lords. Is there anything in particular, a particular event or story or just detail that, you know, comrades around the world can get insight from and learn from?
Well, I was there from beginning to the end. So if you want to know what was highlighted or what traumatized me with the whole experience, you know, we began by collecting the trash, the garbage in our community, because the sanitation department was practicing a very racist policy. They had a racist policy of picking up the garbage in the Black and brown community once every 2 weeks. Now, you know how garbage will stench. But in the white communities, they were picking it up every other day. Okay, hell of a contrast. So what we started doing was we started collecting the garbage. And after we had tons of it, we weaponized it. We started blocking the main traffic arteries of New York City with the garbage, and we set it up on fire. That caught their attention. You know, we took over a church, believe it or not. Okay, we took over a church because we were asking the church. Then this is the event that put us on the map. We took over a church because we asked, you know, the archdiocese to let us use the space to have breakfast program for children, and they continuously refused. So, you know, we took it over. You know, one Sunday we you know, militarized our presence, and we expelled them, and we barricaded ourselves, and the community came out in support. And there were thousands of people surrounding the church to prevent the police from storming the facility. But what's another one? There was, you know, it still baffles me today how we got away with it and we didn't get killed. And that's when we took over Lincoln Hospital. Yeah, we took over a hospital, and it was done in military fashion. At 5 in the morning, we stormed the hospital, and we barricaded ourselves, and we expelled the police guards that were there. And the hospital opened up. We opened it up for you know, progressive doctors to treat people, and the workers. The workers came. You know, we didn't stop them from doing it, but we took it over to make a point that that the hospitals have to serve the community. And it was done in a community where drug addiction was rampant. Okay, heroin was killing the community, and I mean, that heroin was placed there by the rulers because you know, we don't have the means to bring the heroin, the crack cocaine, and all of the drugs into the community. We don't have the resources to do that. Who else has the planes, the ships, and the infrastructure to smuggle that into the United States? It's the rulers. Okay. And I mean, there were many things. There were many things that we did. We used to hold political education classes on the street. Okay, with masses of people on the street. We would show videos, movies, and we would have broad discussions. You know, especially when the Attica prison uprising took place, and there was a massacre that was called by the governor Rockefeller. Okay, I mean, it was so devastating that they even murdered the guards that were held prisoner by the inmates. It was discovered that they were killed not by the prisoners, not by the inmates. They were killed by the storming state troopers that went in, by police. You know, so you know they were you know, we were part of the negotiations because we had members of the Young Lords that were inside of that rebellion in the Attica State Prison, and you know, we were part of the negotiation committee along with Black Panthers and the famous attorney William Kunstler. We were part of those negotiations, but it was to no avail, because one morning when people were going in to have talks, you know, there were helicopters already over the facility, throwing tear gas bombs onto the prison. They were preparing to storm it and to kill people.
Very powerful stories, very inspiring. Maybe we could move on to your later political life. In the period after the Young Lords all the way up till now. I know you've probably had a long journey and inspiring fights then as well. Maybe you can highlight on some of those struggles that folks around the world can also learn from.
Well, you know, to go there, you have to discuss why did the Young Lords cease to exist? Why did the Black Panther Party cease to exist? You know, it wasn't that we packed our bags and closed shop. We were destroyed. We were destroyed by a very vile, you know, program known as COINTELPRO, and it was launched by the FBI and different law enforcement agencies in this country. There were people who were killed. There were people who were incarcerated for life. There was a lot of demoralization, but the most significant part of Operation COINTELPRO is the way they turned brother and sister against brother and sister, you know. And in the case of the Black Panther Party, it was the most severe because Panthers were actually shooting Panthers. In the Young Lords, it was less dramatic, but it was just as, you know, violent. You know, people were kidnapped by their own brothers and sisters. You know, after that happened, after that event happened, I stood away from politics for about a year until I was able to make sense of it, of what was happening. And at that point, in the late 1970s, there was the reemergence of the Ku Klux Klan. And for those who don't know who the Ku Klux Klan is, you need to study Black history because, you know, they are a traditional fascist entity in the United States. And they are not gone. They were created at first by former Confederate soldiers and officers. And they are the traditional fascist entity of the United States. I had moved at that point. I had moved to down south to Louisiana, where the KKK was really, you know, making headways. They were even, you know, running for elected office in local elections. And so I chose at that point to work with the Anti-Klan Coalition because, you know, I knew that it was a continuum for me to fight. It was the same fight that I was fighting, that I was involved in the Young Lords. And I was in Louisiana for a while. Went to prison, and when I came out, I had joined the one of the communist entities, Workers' World, and not to get into those entities, because in order for me to be critical of the socialist left in the United States, I would have to do it under favorable circumstances. I do not like to be critical of socialist entities in public media. I think that that is harmful to the credibility of socialism, okay? And the problem with many socialist entities, and not just in the United States, but all over the world, is that you have a lot of sweet sounding leaders who want to be the king of the mountain. Okay, and we have to take into consideration that socialism, well, take into consideration, but also be objective and critical thinkers when we make these assessments. Socialism took a black eye. Let me plug my computer. It's telling me I'm running out of juice. Hold on a second, please.
Go ahead, brother. While he's doing that, brother David Fox, any quick response to what we've heard so far?
Well, what was interesting early in the discussion, some of the history there, I think a change like taking out the garbage, or what we call the rubbish here, we don't tend to use the word trash too much, but yeah, and then dumping it in the middle of a major intersection in a major capital city. I thought this can be a start. You can have a lot of fun with this and setting it on fire. I could just see how small, issues that, okay, they're important, but on the grand scale, things start out smaller issues that can come out to be quite a lot and turn out to be a broader and larger struggle. And I could, when you're actually talking there, I'm just looking at from a dialectical perspective and historical perspective. You could see how things start off on one particular issue, but then gets developed into higher level issues in one of class struggle. And I thought that was quite fascinating, and it was actually quite inspiring. Also too, I loved how you had a very wicked sense of humor there. At the same time, I thought they had all this stinking garbage right in the middle of an intersection. And you could just imagine at peak hour, all of a sudden people pulling up the intersection. This whole place is
looks like we lost William.
Yeah.
Brother William, try to come back. Let's see. Sorry for the interruption there, brother Carlito. If you either want to respond to that or continue on with your work in the later period.
Well, what I was trying to get at was, socialism took a severe blow. Okay, there's a reason why the upsurge of the 1920s and the 1960s is no longer around, especially after the tragedy that occurred in 1991 with the collapse of the Soviet Union. You can think whatever about the Soviet leadership at the time. It was a devastating blow for all revolutionary movements, and because who was challenging world imperialism? It was a deformed socialism. It was a deformed socialist state. And then what used to be the socialist front, the socialist bloc, went at war with itself. The conflict that occurred for many years between China and the Soviet Union, then the Chinese invasion of Vietnam. I mean, these were embarrassing, or at least should have been embarrassing moments for socialism. And that, that phenomenon occurred because it started to become a reflection of the deterioration, of the ideological premise of socialism and the revolutionary, movement worldwide. And that does not mean that the class struggle ceased to exist, because the class struggle is like an atom. You can't destroy it. Okay, the class struggle has a life of its own. Okay, but socialism a successful socialist revolution does not come about like a phenomenon. It comes about because people are conscious that that's what the hell they want. And that's precisely the dilemma that we have today, that the working class is not organized. Socialism continues to be paralyzed. It is paralyzed politically, it is paralyzed ideologically, and it's paralyzed organizationally. And it's not just in the US, you go around in some countries and it varies, some people are more developed than the left in the United States, but nevertheless, the role that US socialism will play in that process will be decisive, because this is the bastion of world imperialism. It's not Italy, okay? It's not some third world country in Africa, or in Asia, or in Latin America. It's in the United States. The United States holds the trump card for the entire imperialist network to fall. And Che Guevara made a very, very interesting observation when he came here to New York. He said he envied the American revolutionaries because the struggle in the United States will be the decisive battle to end world capitalism. So it is an added responsibility that revolutionaries in the United States have. Unfortunately, the same social divisions that the working class has been, victim of to keep it divided, are the same social divisions that exist within the movement, within the progressive movement. There continues to be, a very consistent indifference towards the nationalism of people of color, particularly Black nationalism. And historically, Black nationalism has been decisive in the progress of the American working class. Okay, all of the most advanced, the greatest progress that existed in labor struggles in the United States has been due to Black leadership in those struggles. Okay, and the influences of Black labor. The populist movement, for example, the populist movement was racist as all hell at one time. Okay, and it wasn't until they united with the sharecroppers, who were in a struggle of their own for control of their labor through control of the land. It wasn't until then that the populist struggle began to make gains. And what that example should tell us. Oh, let me not forget the struggle in Ludlow, Colorado, in 1916. The rulers, they saw the potential and that unity between Black, white, Chicano, Native American workers, miners. They saw the potential in a victorious labor struggle, that they had to send in the U.S. Army to massacre the workers in that labor strike. You know, but there are many glimpses of that potential revolutionary struggle in various struggles throughout U.S. history.
Very powerful, very concise. I mean, you said a lot there. Maybe we can just kind of get into the broader discussion and kind of expand on it. And one of the things that I took from what you had to say that I really liked was that in the socialist movement in the United States, the broader, poisons that capitalism, pushes and reinforces, the racism, the classism, the sexism, homophobia, etc., is present within the left movement. And, I've witnessed it. If I can get a little bit of my background, my family, we were economic refugees from Northern Appalachia. We came down to the South, and most of my friends were Black or mostly Mexican immigrants. There's a huge Mexican immigrant population in North Carolina, and I witnessed like the way my friends were treated, and later my coworkers, absolutely disgraceful. Not allowed to take breaks. Wage theft. The treatment of undocumented workers in the South continues to be absolutely disgusting. Something you'd think was not as something that would be in this country. But then when I got to college and, I was looking into socialism, I noticed these folks like kids of teachers and professors, and socialism to them was like, oh, they're going to go to this fancy restaurant. They're going to buy this book here. They even look down the way I talk, I'm trying to say, I'm like, you see this, you see this, the way that the socialist movement in general treats poor people, treats poor rural people, and especially treats oppressed people, and not allowing, stifling their voices. I'm trying to say, the people that got money want to get their egos up, manipulating people, all kinds of drama and all that, and I'm excited. It's coming. Well, I'm excited. I think things are finally changing. Like we're starting to see more as conditions worsen, as the contradictions come up, as you said, we're starting to see, this right-wing terrorism, but also we're starting to see more people get involved in socialism, and more working class and oppressed voices get within the socialist movement. Just any response to that. Go ahead.
We need a new movement. It's simple. Okay. Because, without a movement, you're stifled. Without a movement, you have nothing to fight with. A movement is more than just people in motion. A movement is a weapon. Okay, a movement is a weapon. There's a reason why the U.S. Military never invaded Cuba. There's a reason for that. I remember right after 9/11 in Cuba, out of a population of 12 million, there were 8 million people that partook in the military maneuvers throughout the island. Okay, 8 million out of 12 million, and the government of Cuba told George Bush, we are not Iraq and we are not Afghanistan. But that is not possible if you don't unite people, masses, numbers. Is that simple? The reason why we have progressive legislations that were signed, it's not because out of the goodness of the heart of these treacherous Democratic Party liberal politicians. It was because the masses through a movement demonstrated their claws. Okay, they demonstrated their firepower, and that's important to grasp, because if we are able to understand the value of numbers, the value of movement, then we can embrace the idea why revolution is possible in the United States and everywhere else.
Very powerful. I know I've been hogging the guest. Brother David Fox, you have any questions for Comrade Carlito?
I think, well, I don't really have any questions. I know I've just been listening attentively. This has been a fantastic insight into the United States. I will comment on something, because all recent events, I think where the position is, I mean, obviously, for all the US comrades out there, everyone, they need to figure out what the way forward for them. Obviously, it's different for us here in Australia and no doubt other countries around the world. But there are some lessons to be learned here, and we can draw lessons from other experiences around the world. And that's what I think. Actually, one thing I think in the US, the struggle with socialism in the US will have its own unique character, its own unique form. What's your thoughts on that? Sorry, did you hear?
Brother Carlito, just to rephrase your thoughts on the United States having its own unique characteristics.
Well, you look at history. History provides you with the fingerprint of what the unique circumstances are, historical circumstances. This was, capitalism in the United States did not develop the same way that it developed in Australia, or it developed in England or in France. In the United States, there was never any feudalism. Okay, it didn't go through the processes that Marx talked about. Okay. It went from for the most part, it went from a primitive communal or tribal state into a very developed capitalist state, and that's the way the United States developed, and it had imperialistic intentions from the very start. I mean, the Monroe Doctrine was written in the early 1800s, and what it was doing was it was carving out Latin America as property of the infant United States. So, and also, it was the one region where African chattel slavery was most, it gained the most, it developed the greatest riches than slavery anywhere else. Okay. The greatest wealth was in slavery in America, and that provided the economic impetus for capitalism everywhere in the world, not just the United States. So that alone should tell you how unique this phenomenon is here in the U.S. Where the events that occurred here had tremendous impact on world capitalism. And it was because of the oppression of Black people here. Unlike, let's say, Australia, where the indigenous population was decimated. It was decimated. It was not exploited the way African Americans were. Okay, it was decimated, and it was not exploited to create wealth. Okay, It was over control of territory, of land. In the United States, it was combined. The quest for land conquest was combined with economic dominance. And what's interesting is if you look at American history, right after the slaves were freed, they became prosperous in various parts of the United States. And in one in particular, in Oklahoma, they were destroyed because they were doing better than the white population economically. Okay, and they were burned. They were, they were black towns that were developing, and all of a sudden, they were overran. Those people were forced to uproot. So there you have it. I mean, everybody is different. In England, where's the English fella? He left, huh?
I think he may have had trouble with his connection. We're getting near the end of our time. Maybe I'd like to just add a few historical notes I think are interesting. You mentioned the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. I don't call it riot. It was a massacre. I'm from the state of North Carolina. In Durham, there was actually a banking sector they called Black Wall Street, which was bombed by the white supremacist state. And I think probably a more hopeful situation in North Carolina was what you mentioned earlier, was when the populace united with the former slaves in Wilmington, North Carolina. The sharecroppers, not because they instantly like, oh, we're going to be good non-racist now. They're literally being like starved to death and worked to death. And like, they had no other option but to side with the black workers. So, they actually did join with the black workers, and they took power. And there was a coup d'etat committed against them. And then, they made sure that it didn't happen again with the amount of propaganda of pushing poor white people into racism to control them and get them to act against black people, against their own interests. Like, I mean, it's sad history, but there are those glimpses, that positive history I was talking about, when the sharecroppers and the former slaves came together. And I think there was another moment of that, with the original Rainbow Coalition, the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, the Young Patriots, economic refugees from the South living in Chicago, also facing regional discrimination, class oppression, police brutality. I think, coming together, there's an old Union saying that I was taught by the folks that introduced socialism to me. The legacy of the people don't want to hear about this, but I mean, I'm just going to get into, I say this over and over again. We're always told communism's evil. In the state of North Carolina, communists were the people that integrated the first unions in the state. You don't hear about that. The tobacco strike was led by communists in the state. And that was part of the foundation. There was a Black Panthers out in Winston-Salem that came out of that strike that was organized by communists. And, there's all this hidden history. Maybe we just do a round of conclusions. I think going forward with this, from what I hear from you, I think we need to find this hidden history. And I think if you go into the academic bourgeois universities, maybe you'll see like a few lines or a few notes about this important struggle. And I think we need to build more institutions like this, where we can actually get into this repressed revolutionary history of resistance, so we can build and unite and build power, to fight for ourselves and eventually, take power and build socialism. Let's see, brother, we're going to let Carlito get the last word. Brother David Fox, maybe give us a concluding statement.
Well, this is where history is important. And well, obviously, instead of having history being told by the victors, we need to actually talk by the people on the other side. And obviously, what you just said there, Dust. I mean, most of the world would not know about those tobacco strikes. That was organised by communists. I mean, this is important because the reason why we need to understand the history, we learn from it, and what we, take the positives out of it, what can work for us now, and apply it for today. And it's vitally important to have that, because sometimes we're starting out, and if we're not aware of the historical material conditions around us, and what's happened previously, we're bound to actually repeat, probably in a much more modern method, the same mistakes over and over, and we'll learn from that. And actually, even with Carlito, when you explained some of the history there, it was quite fascinating, and there's some good lessons to be learned from there as well. We're all going to have differences of opinions at times about moving forward, and that's perfectly natural and it's perfectly fine. But I think we have that discussions, but we're not out there to destroy each other either. And I think that's important, because we've got to keep focused on the main picture here. And that, I think, one thing we can learn from all that recent history, even with the Soviet Union, going right back to the Sino-Soviet dispute and split, I think we've got to learn from that. And okay, we're now living in the third decade of the 21st century. What can we do now to do that's different, and draw lessons from that?
Thank you, brother. Comrade Carlito, any words of wisdom to leave our international audience with tonight?
Well, I have a lot of admiration for people that are religious. Okay. And this is coming from an atheist. Okay. I have a lot of respect for them, because they function, they can have all the differences in the world, but they have steel pillars, okay, of principles. We have to base everything that we do on what's in the interest of the working class, okay. And I don't mean it from the standpoint of a good Samaritan or someone in the Democratic Party that will tell you, yeah, we're for American workers. No, we're talking about being in the, for the interest of the working class at the expense of the class that's keeping them down. Okay, because there's a lot of different misinterpretations of what socialism is, and those conceptions, they seem to funnel, sneak their way into the revolutionary currents. And by that I mean that if the working class exists, the other class cannot exist. It's that simple. Okay, it's an antagonistic struggle. Okay, and it's a life and death struggle where there cannot be coexistence. There's most of these socialist organizations, okay, need to cleanse themselves from that. There's the democratic socialists, whatever the hell, that is for, working people getting their fair share. Now, what the fuck is fair share in the class struggle? Beats the hell out of me, okay? Because there is no fair share. They stole everything that they have, okay? And when we talk about liberation, it has to be at the expense of the demise of our foe, and you cannot talk about coming about to fundamental social and economic change in the world if you don't talk about how is it that we're going to build a movement that's fundamentally opposed to what exists now, and based on that principle, we have to be able to establish the common ground for various sectors of socialism. And the various sectors of socialism exist not because the other guy is a bad guy. the variations in the world outlook within socialism exists because that is the objective state of the working class. Okay, that is the objective state in the working class. There's confusion and there's different interpretations of what our interest is. If you ask any worker, they'll give you a variety of explanations of what's in their best interest. Okay, and some of these explanations really, are harmful to working people, but that's okay because the objective processes are going to compel us, are going to compel everyone to seek and find the right path. And if you look at the Cuban experience, the Cuban experience is a good example of what I'm talking about, because not everyone in Cuba is a communist. Not everyone in Cuba understands what socialism is, but the common ground is we don't want to be invaded and we want to eat. We don't want a blockade. We don't want medicines to be prevented from coming into our country. Okay, and those are the socialist demands for that experience. In the United States, socialism will be much easier because we don't have to develop economically. Socialism, the basis, the strength for socialism in the United States already exists here. That is not something that we have to develop. That is not something that we have to scramble for. The way it is the case in Cuba, or in socialist Soviet Russia. Okay, Russia was one of the most backward regions in the world, and by I'm still baffled. How is it that they were able to put a Sputnik up in space? Okay, because they were a backward country, but they strove to develop their economic base, just like China. But in the United States, that struggle will not be necessary because the economic enormousness already exists. So that's the advantage that we have here in the bastion of imperialism. And it should add as to why socialism in the United States is possible.
Very powerful. Thank you so much, Brother Carlito, for coming on. Listen, thank you, Brother David Fox. We actually end every episode with a chant that we learned from the Black Panthers. So if everyone could raise their fist and repeat after me: dare to struggle,
Dare to struggle,
dare to win,
dare to win,
dare to win.
All power to the people.
All power to the
all
people.
power to the people.
Right on. Thank you, everyone.